hear me okay? You're going to have to bear with me. My voice is starting to go, which is probably telling that we're at the end of our year of presidency at Bloom North. So today's discussion's inspired by an initiative we started last year called The Exchange, which was tackling how we diversify recruitment, how we better retain talent in our industries, and how we support particularly women rise through the ranks up into leadership positions. And so the work that we have done has inspired today's conversation. And a little bit to set the scene, for every 100 men that are promoted from entry level to manager role, only 87 women are promoted. And that trend then continues up through the career ladder, so to speak. But when we speak to women, 3 out of 4 of them want to rise into leadership positions. And yet the data that we've seen over the last 12 months tells us that anywhere between 25 and 39% of C-suite positions in our industry are actually held by women at the moment. So the work that we've done through this initiative is setting to start to drive some action to change that, and we've got some brilliant people which Nim will introduce.
Thank you, Sarah. So first up, we've got Ian Lenihan, who is Head of Talent Acquisition at McCann World Group. Next up, Jasmine Tang, who's Digital Integration Consultant at Accenture. Simon Barnes, Global Customer Care Operations at Jaguar Land Rover. And Fiona Smithson, Senior HR Business Partner at the BBC. Thank you so much for joining us. It was really important for us to have kind of a vast array of different industries joining us today, all of whom are doing something to spearhead innovative initiatives within the company, which ultimately will help women. So Ian, recruiting. What problem did you recognise within your recruitment strategy at McCann World Group?
So when I joined, it's important to recognise that inclusive hiring is at all levels, but the biggest problems for us were our early careers. We've long recruited apprentices, graduates, but our intakes, there wasn't a great deal of representation amongst those. Exacerbated by our location, we're in the middle of nowhere, you've got to be able to drive to get there. But I think it was the way we were approaching it. So for too long we've been biased towards people who've done degrees in marketing, communications, PR. One of the truths that we don't always recognise is the same challenges with representation exist on those degree courses. When you open it out to business studies, psychology, humanities, there's a much more diverse range of students to sort of tap into. There's also a captive audience, and I think we're in an industry of storytellers, but we don't really tell our own story very well. So a big part of our problem was, how do we reach those sort of communities, how do we reach those groups of students? We had a number of challenges in terms of the processes were biased towards students from marketing degrees. You came to an assessment centre and you had that existing knowledge, you're already at an advantage. So we had to do away with a lot of that.
Mm-hmm. And what then? How did you approach the recruitment process differently to find a solution?
So I think the first thing I'd say to anyone is be ready to make mistakes. We certainly did. The first thing we did, like a lot of organisations, is try to remove unconscious bias by opening out blind hiring, where you remove all characteristics. It failed miserably, and it failed completely because we hadn't tackled the underlying problem that we weren't getting diverse applicants in the first place.
Right.
So we overhauled our outreach instead and started talking to a much broader range of universities. UA92 in particular has been a big partnership we've driven, where the whole university is predicated on breaking down barriers. So that's been a great door opener for us. We've helped them develop their digital marketing course. So again, students coming out of there are coming out with work readiness skills that you wouldn't get elsewhere. And then we did away with the whole requirement of needing a marketing degree. It was as simple as that. And how do we talk to students from other degree disciplines? We've changed all our language. Instead of asking people to think about where they'd want to work in an agency, we started talking about, well, what sort of brain are you? Are you linear, lateral, diagonal? And us coaching them about where they might suit our industry. Right down to at college level, talking more, are you a chatterbox from Cubby and Clyde Services? Are you into tech and gadgets? Right, technology. Are you into TV? Then media, etc. So it's been just changing the language in our approach to speaking to audiences like that. And then I think the final thing was recognising that people coming out of college today are a lot more clued up about the careers they want to go into. We've always had a rotation programme. You'd find your home in McCann over over a year, and actually now students are coming to us saying, I want to be a content creator, I want to be a creative, I want to be a social media specialist. So we've overhauled our entire apprentice programme to have specialist opportunities like that. That's opened up a lot of doors.
Nice. So obviously we both work in marketing, media and whatnot, so we're looking at results all the time. So what impact has this change in recruitment strategy had? What results are you seeing?
So I can't say we've solved it yet. There's no silver bullet to this. It's a journey, but our apprentices now, 62% in the last couple of years have been female, 21% have come from ethnically diverse backgrounds. So we're making significant progress on where we've been previously. The next step for us is how do we then move that to our experienced hires? How do we develop things like returner programs, etc., to ensure we're having similar rates of success now?
Nice, thank you, Ian. So recruitment, we've tackled recruitment, we'll move on to Rise. Jasmine, can you give us your perspective as a woman at Accenture on the strategies the organisation has implemented to retain and develop female talent?
Yeah, sure. Can everyone hear me first of all? Okay, great.
It's really odd because we can't hear each other very well.
It's very quiet up here. So I think I've definitely had a really good experience at Accenture, to be honest with you. I feel, part of a really inclusive and diverse environment, but I think a lot of this has come from the investment in our community, and to be honest, I think it's not just about creating awareness in the workplace of diversity, it's also about celebrating that diversity as well. And I think that is talking from a more general perspective, but if I think about a more targeted approach when it comes to championing our female talent in the organisation, I think about the coaching sessions that I've been really fortunate to be part of, and these opportunities that they Accenture continue to give us. And these coaching sessions, they are focused on our women. They're about, and they're not just there for our young talent, to be honest. They're also focused on creating a pathway forward for young individuals like ourselves. They're focused on helping us navigate our way through the workplace, because there are certain obstacles and barriers that, even if we don't talk about them on a daily basis, they are there, unfortunately, and it's not a case of they're going to be removed in a day or two. They're still going to be there, potentially in my whole journey at Accenture. So it's really about upskilling our female talent, making sure that we're fully equipped with the right tools, the right skill sets to excel in the workplace and achieve what we need to achieve in the workplace. And then these coaching sessions, they're also targeted, not, like I said earlier, not just young talent like myself, all ages. It can be women trying to return to the workplace after maternity leave as well.
Nice.
So yeah, a lot of avenues. And then just one more point I'd like to add on, which I wasn't actually going to plan to cover, but now that I'm actually sat up here, it feels a little bit different. But giving opportunities and giving the right opportunities to female talent to actually be the voice and face of your brand. So I'm sat here as a young Asian woman, and it's daunting, yes, but this is a huge opportunity for me as well. I'm representing Accenture here, and I think the key message there is champion your people, champion your young talent, and allow your young talent to be the face and voice of your brand.
Yeah, love that. Yeah. And they were really, they were so keen to have you on here, and we're really glad to have you here as well, Jasmine. What initiatives have Accenture introduced to give visibility to career paths that might not have otherwise been visible as you go along your journey?
Yeah, so we do a lot of work in terms of trying to tap into a variety of pipelines, and I think a lot of our focus is also tapping into pipelines that are quite unconventional as well. So, not trying to recruit from your typical graduate programs or streams as such. So really trying to give exposure to those that don't typically have exposure to career paths as such. So we've done a lot of work with, girls in STEM, Girls Who Code, and Tech She Can, for example. And a lot of this work is centered around making sure young girls have, first of all, visibility to the opportunities out there. Second of all, kind of making them aware that there is a place for them in this world, and also just letting them see the excitement of the digital world. I think the excitement of technology as well is something that we like to focus on. And then the social mobility is also a big focus of ours as well. We've obviously done, we achieved this through a lot of our networks, to be honest. So our connections with DigiLearning, our connections with the Creative Mentor Network. So there's a lot of avenues that we utilise and we channel to try and, I guess, tap into unseen talent, and we are going after all of them as much as we can.
Love that. Thank you so much, Jasmine. Simon, So we were really fascinated to talk to you because obviously you're from Jaguar Land Rover. You've been there for multiple years, and typically that could be seen as a really male environment and a male industry. And it was really, really great to hear all the good things that Jaguar Land Rover are doing to help identify regarding women stepping up into leadership roles, how they shape the need for the Level Up initiative. Can you explain a bit about how that all came about?
Yeah, I can. And we talked quite a bit over the last week or so. And actually, I sit here now acknowledging that within the automotive industry, I'm part of the problem. The automotive industry is really male dominated, and without offence to anybody, white, middle-aged males dominated as well. So I sit here as part of the problem, and I think as a leadership team we started to recognise that, and we've talked about the conversation about how we were attacked, but how do we allow women feel comfortable to be able to progress within the industry. So we led this initiative called Level Up, and it was all part of the diversity and inclusion, and it was recognising that there was a rung missing in the ladder. That's what we said. So women would progress through to a point, and then were seeming to not take that jump into management and exec management sort of positions. So when you started to drill down into why, I think a lot of it was that they didn't feel comfortable to actually apply for some of these positions. And look, again, last time we looked, women are the only ones that are capable of having children. So they'd go and have children, they'd go and take a year out. We had great policies for having time out. But then when they return to the business, sort of feel like, well, hang on a minute, my life's changed substantially. What is there in place for me? And because my life's changed substantially, JLR's got some great policies for reduced hour working, etc. But hang on a minute, now I'm working 4 days a week. I can't possibly apply for these positions. So we sort of, certainly within the engineering teams, flipped everything on its head slightly. And rather than waiting for people to apply for these positions, we encouraged the managers, the senior managers, the leaders in the business, including myself, to actually be proactive. Go out to an audience and say, this is the sort of people I'm looking for. This is the sort of person I'm looking for. I'm looking for a person that can bring these assets into a team. I'm looking for a person that has this sort of background, this experience. And I think by doing that, it actually opened the doors a little bit more to, there was no talk about, are you full-time or are you not? Because we shouldn't use that. We can't use that. It happens though, let's be honest, it still happens. And that really started to change. And from a numbers point of view, it's not really a number, but since we launched that initiative in 2022, I'd say two key things have happened. We've doubled the amount of women now that are in leadership positions within JLR, which I think is absolutely fantastic. And actually, if you look at our board of directors now, 3 of the board are women. And they're really, really pioneers and sort of aspirational models for everyone in the business, but especially the women in the business, that their opportunities are as good as anybody else in the business as well. The other thing which we didn't talk about is actually from a levelling up on a salary point of view as well. So we have a process for doing that, and within my own function, when we looked at that only a couple of weeks ago, we're down to a 2% pay discrepancy between males and females. It's 2% too much, yeah, before someone says it. But where we were many years ago, 11, 12, 15, 20%, we're really moving the bar on that as well.
Nice. And so what impact has it had in terms of measurable outcomes? What changes have you seen at Jaguar Land Rover? Measurable outcomes in terms of staff retention or attrition, but also in terms of how the mindset and the culture at Jaguar Land Rover has shifted over that time?
Yeah, so from an attrition point of view, we're actually probably in quite a poor place because our attrition is so low, which sounds a bizarre thing to say, but within my commercial function, we're down below 2%. So actually we need to look at that enablement for people to move around. JLR is 44,000 people with a reasonably global footprint, so we need to encourage that move around. But from a behaviours point of view, it's another one of those steps we need to make. Focus, I know, about women in the automotive world, but it's all part of that diversity and inclusion culture. It's about people feeling comfortable to be able to be open and talk, and everybody is fundamentally the same and everyone's entitled to the same opportunities. So I think the initiative focused around sort of the women in engineering, women in JLR part has led into far easier conversations when we look at the far greater diversity picture within JLR, whether it be physical, neurological disabilities, race, colour, etc. It's just changed the way. In a decades-old business, And if you told me this was going to happen when I started back in 1991, I know I don't look old enough, I would have just been like, really? But it's happening. And now we've flipped it around to people have a choice. You either get on this train and encourage it and buy into it, or maybe take an opportunity somewhere else.
It's great to hear, and having spoken to you over the last week or so, you're such an ally and a great supporter of women and great supporter of everything that Jaguar Land Rover are doing to support women. So we're really glad that you're here and that you made the journey. Thank you, Simon. So we were super keen to have the BBC join us today because I personally have read a lot on LinkedIn about how they are doing a lot towards squiggly careers. So you might start a job as a radio producer and end up in HR, which was actually an example of the person I spoke to last week. So we're really, really keen to have Fiona join us today from the BBC. Can you tell us a little bit about what strategies the BBC have implemented to support talent and progression, and what potentially lessons other companies could take from that?
Yeah, sure. So thank you. So we really started to look at this in earnest about 3 years ago when we had two sets of information that really spoke to us. Our employee opinion survey was showing us that our staff were saying we're not as happy as we could be with our career progression in the BBC. And also when we started to look at our attrition, which a bit like Simon was saying is actually quite low, one of the main reasons for people leaving was career progression. So, we couldn't just sit and hear that without taking real action on the back of it. So there was a set of activity based around support for individuals, support for team leaders, but also thinking culturally about what do we want to do and how do we want this to feel different. So support for individuals is this plethora of information, toolkits and support about your careers. There's also a couple of key things that we implemented, which I would say have been our most popular when we look around the BBC and how they're used. And they're two things, one of which is called Hot Shoes and the other of which is called 80-20. So Hot Shoes, we have this amazing glitzy red sparkly set of shoes. It's our symbol, and it was actually born from Media City when the BBC moved to Salford, and it was all about how do we let people experience all the different opportunities that coming together in Media City brings. So Hot Shoes, and I get really passionate about this because it's so important for me in terms of how we bring out everybody's potential. So Hot Shoes is a scheme where people can, for 2 days or 2 weeks on an opportunity, go and try something completely different. We've had so many opportunities in the past, whether it's been Strictly, whether it's Women's Hour. Eurovision was a massive opportunity. I tried to get on that and it was so heavily subscribed. I didn't make it, but I don't really have production skills, so that's fine. So Hot Shoes is a beloved scheme, and I think we were oversubscribed. We had about initially 160 places this year. We had 1,200 people apply. People wait for the window where we launch the opportunities and really want to get involved. The good news this year we doubled the number of opportunities we could offer people. So Hot Shoes is all about trying something new, trying different experiences, testing your skills and capabilities, what excites you. Then we have 80-20. So 80-20 is kind of more about building the experience and the skills. So if we introduce an 80-20 scheme, it's where I spend up to one day a week between 3 and 6 months in a different job. So I've had somebody working with me on career development, supporting me that's come from a completely different background, an operational leader, but who feels passionate about mobility and wanting to make a difference. So this is about really kind of opening your eyes into the world of the possibility and trying it in a really safe way. And because it's so, we've had over 1,000 people now take up a schemes placement, and we're just now starting to look at the impact. We're tracking to see how is it making a difference? Are people going on and getting different jobs? How is it helping people that develop their careers? And what's the diversity impact? How is that manifesting itself? So we can really understand how we support everybody in the BBC. My mantra is everyone has potential. It's about, if you talk about how do we apply this to small businesses, I'm a firm believer everyone has potential. The potential for what will just vary. And it's how do you work with the teams, identify and unlock that potential to bring out the best for them, but ultimately for the organisation as well.
Thank you, Fiona. I think that was the key thing that we wanted to get out here today. It's all well and good Fiona sitting here telling us what they do at the BBC when there's 22,000 people work there, is
Around
it?
that, yeah.
Yeah, around that. And obviously, a lot of us sitting here are from much smaller businesses. So it's like, how can we dip our toe in the water if we want to kind of improve that staff retention, but also giving the employees happiness and wellness throughout their careers. So thank you for that. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you everybody for sharing some of your individual experiences and ideas, and I hope we found it super inspiring over the last couple of weeks working with this group, just hearing some of those stories. So hopefully there are things that you can all take away into your own organisations, and I know we'll be taking it back into the exchange with Bloom and looking at how we start to shine a spotlight on some of these things across our industry as well.